Welcome to Medicine, Motherhood, and Missions, the podcast where we dive deep into impactful and inspiring conversations with amazing professionals who've turned their challenges into stepping stones for success. I'm Johanna, your host, and each time we meet, we'll explore the stories and journeys of remarkable individuals who are PAs, doctors, professionals, mothers, and mission-driven changemakers, from the halls of the hospitals to the hearts of our homes, and into the communities we serve. Join us as we uncover the challenges, triumphs, and everything in between, and see life through each other's perspective. If you're seeking fulfillment in your career and life, I've got something special for you too. Download our free guide on how to be a fulfilled provider. It's packed with tips and insights to help you thrive while balancing the many hats you wear. And for all those parents out there dreaming big while raising little ones, check out Little Evie's Big Dreams children's book series, available now on Amazon. These heartwarming stories inspire kids to chase their own dreams, just like you're chasing yours. So grab your favorite cup of coffee or tea, settle in, and get ready for uplifting conversations that will leave you inspired and equipped to make a greater impact. Let's jump in. Hi friends, I'm so excited to have you all back this week on Medicine, Motherhood, and Missions. I have a special guest today, Miss Christine Devane, and we're going to talk about a book she wrote and what happens when a shy girl, a little girl with a love for elephants, the ocean, and storytelling, grows up to become a teacher, a mom, and now a children's book author. In this episode, Christine Devane, author of Elephant Beach, is here to talk about her journey from the sidelines of childhood to the front lines of imagination. Christine shares how she was an introvert and how that shaped her creativity, how reading to her students sparked her love for storytelling, and how stepping outside her comfort zone, just like the elephant in her book, led to beautiful new connections. So thank you, Christine, for being here on the show. I'm excited to talk to you about the topics of your book, first and foremost, and the underlying conversation about being an introvert versus an extrovert, and being shy, and childhood, things that we go through being shy versus being an extrovert. So first of all, Christine, let's go back to your childhood in North Andover, and what were you like as a little girl, and how did your love for reading and elephants first begin?
Hi, well, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm very excited to be here and for our conversation. When I was growing up, I was very shy. I loved reading books and staying to myself. And I always loved reading about animals, and elephants were always my favorite animals. And my grandparents and my parents actually started me on a collection of elephants. So they would bring me back elephants when they went away. And I have a very extensive Lucky Elephant collection, which is funny. Some of them are away now because my kids are small and we don't want them being broken. But growing up, I just always enjoyed reading, and I was the quiet person that stayed to myself and liked to read books. I wasn't the first one jumping in line to join in groups, and sometimes it was hard to want to join in groups. And that's something that I used in the book, showing that it's not always easy for some kids to join groups.
Mm-hmm. And so you describe yourself as being very shy. How did being an introvert shape the way you observed the world growing up?
So growing up as an introvert, it's definitely different, obviously, than an extrovert. You're quieter, you're watching things. I loved animals. I wanted to be a vet, but I can't stand the sight of work, so that didn't work out. But that, I think, made me feel more connected to animals, because animals don't talk. You can just sit there and watch them. So it was different, obviously, than an extrovert, because it was just a lot of time reading and watching things and observing rather than jumping in right away.
Yeah. And, I consider myself a little bit of an introvert in social settings, but there are, I think, like different types, because I know I was a little shyer or a little quieter and introverted as a young child too. And what so I know for me, I would get irritated though when people said you're too quiet. And so I would try to talk and try to, be a little bit more extroverted, but that always kind of was a little like irritation for me
Yeah.
when like you're so quiet, but I'm like I'm just observing or I'm just listening, and then I'll have a conversation after listening to the environment, so those were kind of some of the things I kind of, also experienced too. Did you feel the same when if people kind of commented on it or?
Yes, and I can remember I really did not like in school when the teachers would call on me. So when I became a teacher, I tried not to do that. I try to let kids raise their hand, and if they want to
Mhm.
share, then I'll let them share their opinions. But I can remember being in school and sitting there, and when the teacher called on me, I would turn bright red, and I just
Mhm.
didn't like sharing with the class. So it was something that stuck with me as I got older, which is same with you when people made that comment. It's just something you remember.
Yeah, yeah. And so, uh, what about also, going back to your, the trinkets and little gifts that your grandparents brought to you? What memory stands out from beach trips or with your grandparents or parents, or what about the ocean also called to you to write about that in the book? Or is there any
So
specific memory that stands out?
Growing up, my grandparents lived in Revere. I mean, I don't think you're from Massachusetts, so, but
No.
the Revere has a beach in it. So we went to the beach a lot. So I have a lot of memories of going to the beach with my grandparents and my
Mhm,
parents. And it was always fun. We used to build sandcastles and go
mhm.
swimming. And then we always got an ice cream after. So when I
Yeah,
was trying to think of a setting for my story, I thought the beach would be a perfect setting because most kids can't identify with the beach. They've
mhm.
either been there or most of
Yeah,
them have seen it in a book or on a cartoon. And I just thought it would be something that kids could relate to.
yeah, yeah. That's so true, because it is something of a childhood memory for most kids, or something that they can, definitely identify with, a beach trip. And so, speaking also to your, conversation earlier about how you brought in some of those, experiences that you had as a childhood or learning from those experiences to being a teacher, what inspired you to pursue teaching, and how did your years in the classroom plant the seeds for writing Elephant Beach?
So when I was a teenager, I started to babysit a lot. And then I started working with children in after school programs. And I always found it very rewarding. Every day
Mhm,
was different. We got to do all sorts of activities. The kids were excited to see you. So it was really during my high school years that I grew a love for working with children. And then when I went to college, I decided to become a teacher. And after I graduated, I started teaching. And it was just a very rewarding career. And I always loved my students, and everybody was always different, but it was fun. And the funny thing is you can kind of tie in your interests. So I had different things in my classroom, and my kids always knew I loved animals and elephants, and sometimes they brought me elephants. So
oh, that's so sweet. Yeah, and do you think that, like, you were babysitting and you worked with kids, programs and things, as you grew a little older and older, do you think those types of activities brought out your personality or brought you out, into the conversation more, or helped you kind of be less shy? I think that's what I'm trying to get at. Like, what experiences brought you out of the shyness, so to speak?
so I would agree that working with kids definitely brought
Mhm,
me out of my shell because
mhm,
for most kids, they're not intimidating. So working with
mhm,
kids, I found that I got to be myself and I didn't really have to worry about the judgment of adults because kids don't really judge you. So it was through working with kids that I found my own interests and my love of teaching and writing was working with them.
Yeah. And what could you like advise like parents who may have a more introverted child? What kind of advice would you give to them to help maybe, you know, lessen the child's fear of choosing things or going to different things or um, being able to come out of their shell more?
I think with introverted kids, parents just have to be patient and realize not all kids are the same. I think that some parents feel almost a sort of shame when their kids don't want to join in a group or join in an activity. And I think just being patient, and I know for myself, I have one very extroverted child and one very introverted child. And it's completely different taking them anywhere because they're such different personalities. So I just have to be patient with my son that's shy.
Mhm,
And sometimes he just wants to stay with me, and I have to be okay with that. And I think sometimes parents just have to understand they're kids. Not every kid has such an easy time of just joining in at the
mhm,
group. So if he goes to a birthday party and he doesn't want to join in, he wants to sit with me, that's fine. He tried soccer and he just wanted to sit on the side. And it was funny, the second to last week, he decided to play and he loved it. And then he kept saying, when is soccer? When is soccer? And I said, it's
Oh,
over.
oh,
um,
yeah.
but I kept bringing him and I didn't force him to do anything.
Mhm,
So I think that if you have a child as an introvert, just trying not to force them because
mhm,
that's going to make them feel more uncomfortable. I can remember, as you can remember, there's things that people
mhm,
did that they thought would be helpful, but I think
mhm,
in turn makes the person feel more uncomfortable. So
right.
just trying to be patient with them
Mhm,
and also trying to find things that interest them. My son loves bugs, so they had a bug thing at the library, and I brought him, and he was very excited.
yeah.
So just trying to let them be themselves, and
Mhm,
also just be, like I said, patient with them.
yeah. I think that's even for all children, extroverts versus, whatever range of personality the child may have. Um, Patience for each of their strengths and weaknesses is needed, right? I think, in a way, it's interesting that sometimes we, as you said, some parents feel may be more pressure or shame for their introverted child versus their extroverted child, which shouldn't be the case because every child has strengths and weaknesses, and we should focus on their strengths and their unique characteristics that make them so joyful and happy when they're doing those activities, right? Yeah.
Yes, I've had some friends that have come to my kids' birthday parties and their kids are shy and they sit on the side and they'll say,
Mhm.
"Oh, I'm so sorry they didn't participate." And it doesn't matter to me if they participate or not. If they don't
Yeah.
feel comfortable and they don't want to participate, that's fine. But I think
Yeah.
that people feel bad that their
Mhm.
child doesn't always want to jump in. But
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. And so, but talking about you as a teacher, how did you like also bring out the various personalities in the class, or because you're dealing with a whole range of kids from from very
yes,
boisterous to really
yes,
quiet, I'm sure.
yes, they're
And
all different ranges.
yeah.
Um, So there's a lot of different things I tried. Like I said, I tried not to call on kids. I tried to let
Mhm,
kids be comfortable and confident in sharing. I tried to make it so no kid was left out. So a lot of times I had clock buddies where they filled out partners for every day, and then that way no one was looking for a buddy. Oh, you'd say, "Oh, here's your 12 o'clock buddy," and they had somebody to work with instead
mhm.
of just saying turn and find a partner because that's not always easy for kids.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
also, just kind of trying to find something that the introvert is interested in and asking them questions about that. And I have to do that with my own children because my extrovert will tell you, he'll tell you whatever you want. He'll get in the car, tell you every detail of his day. You don't have to ask him anything. But my son that's an introvert, you kind of have to pry a little. And it's the same thing with the kids at school. You
Yeah.
have some kids that will share whatever, and then some
Mhm.
kids that aren't going to share, but
Yeah.
sometimes they just need a little bit of probing. But if you find
Mhm.
something that interests them
Mhm.
or ways to get them to share their thoughts, that was always something that was helpful to me as a teacher and now as a mom to all different kids.
Yeah. And you mentioned in a previous conversation before we had the recording and our general conversation, you had mentioned reading aloud was your favorite part of the school day. And what did you love most about sharing stories with your students?
So we used to have read aloud time usually after recess, and it was a cool
Mhm.
down time. And I liked reading all different books with them because we got to see all different emotions in the class, and some kids would laugh. And then we had a lot of good discussions, and then just tying it into their own personal lives. It was always a really fun time of the day. And a
Mhm.
lot of kids liked being able to pick out the book for story time. And it was
Yeah,
just a time, too, that they didn't have to sit at their desk and be writing, and they could just sit and relax. And if they wanted to share a thought after, they could share a thought, but they didn't always have to.
yeah, yeah. Did you find that you were able to connect with maybe the quieter children with different stories that brought their interest and out or through those reading aloud session, reading sessions?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes different kids, there'd be
Hmm.
different types of books that it would be something that they would know a lot about, and then they would like
Right.
to share.
Yeah.
Whereas during the day, they might not necessarily be raising their hand to share their thoughts.
Hmm. Yeah. And at what moment did you realize I want to write my own children's book? And what gave you the courage to pursue it?
So when I was teaching, as we just talked about, I loved
Mhm,
doing the read alouds. And then
mhm,
I started doing some research on publishing children's books, and I joined a group called the SCBWI. That's
mhm,
an authors group. And I started going to conferences and taking classes. And it just became an interest for me. And I
mhm.
found groups that helped me to work together and work through all of my thoughts and the whole process.
Yeah. And tell us about Elephant Beach and what I know the story behind it is, getting out of your shell, but what other message do you hope kids and adults will want to take away?
So, Elephant Beach is a story about a shy girl that goes to the beach by herself. And
Mhm.
she really just wants to read her book alone, as I did when I was younger. I just wanted to be by myself and read a book. And there's a group of elephants, and they're almost annoying her. They don't mean to be, but
Mhm,
they cast a big shadow over her, and then they're shaking the ground, and the sand's going on her towel. And they
mhm,
invite her to play, and she says no. But eventually, she is brave and she joins the group and she has fun. So there's messages in there for introverts and extroverts. So
mhm.
for the introverts, it's showing them that sometimes it's nice to step outside of your comfort zone and to join a group. And it might not be that scary to join and make new friends. And she would have had fun by herself at the beach, but having more fun with the elephants. And then for the extroverts, it shows them that sometimes it's nice to ask people to join the group because she was by herself and the elephants did go over and ask her. She said no, but she eventually changed her mind. And something for everyone, even adults, is just not to judge people before you get to know them because she thought the elephants were annoying because she thought they were bothering her. But once she spent time with them, she saw that they were kind and fun and friendly. So just really getting to know people before you judge them.
I love that. I love that meaning and purpose behind the book because that's so true. Because both sides of the party, whether you're too quiet or whether you're not quiet or, whatever your personality is, meeting people who aren't exactly like um, you can come up with a lot of prejudgments, judging books by its cover, so to speak. But actually getting to know the person, going up and talking to them, that takes a lot of courage as well to, step out of your comfort zones and go to talk to other people, get to know them and hear their story and journey. And I love that. I love that. And how you also talk to the important message of stepping out of your comfort zone just to do something different. I think in life, growing up, from you know, childhood to being a teenager to an adult, etc. Throughout life, you're going to face challenges, you're going to face um, choices, and you can either choose to go down one path or the other. And every path that you'll face and go through, you'll have to try and get out of your comfort zone a little bit more to grow and to learn something, start a business or write a book, or, it all
Oh.
takes courage to get to that next level, right? And
Yep.
try, because it's showing a little bit of our hearts on the page when you try something different than what you're used to, just like this little girl who had to step out and meet some new friends.
Yes.
That's so sweet. Um, and so elephants have been a lifelong love for you, and you had mentioned you also got to actually go to Africa and see some wild elephants in Africa. And how
Yes.
did
So
that
I
kind of, yeah?
went 8 years ago. I went to Africa with my family and my husband, and we got to
Uh-huh,
go on safari and we got to see all
mhm,
the elephants in the wild. And it was
mhm,
really fun to see the way they interact with each other and they're playing and they're so social. They're all in
mhm,
groups together. And it was just a really nice experience to be able to see how they interact and how just social and fun loving they really are.
mhm. Yeah. And I think you also mentioned that that helped you kind of um, you have more ideas for the illustrations in the book and kind of
Yes.
put a little bit more of a personal stamp into how you viewed it in your imagination and reality and everything. So that's pretty neat.
Yes, it was fun.
Yeah. And um, so as a mom of three, how has your children inspired your storytelling? And I know they're pretty young now, so I guess you're not testing out too many of your ideas on them yet, are you? Or do you?
Well, it's funny. My son that's an extrovert, he's the older one. He's
Mhm.
very into this whole thing. So he helps me pick out when I'm going to school visits. He helps me
Uh-huh.
pick out all the sunglasses I'm bringing for
Oh.
everyone, all the coloring pages. Um, it's pretty funny. He'll say, make sure you bring some for the teachers too. And he'll tell me, oh, well, I like this. I don't like this. So
Uh-huh.
it's he's funny because he's my little assistant. So he gets everything
Yeah.
ready for me. And it's fun to read with them and see how they
Uh-huh.
react to different things. So
Yeah.
if they think it's something funny, and then I think it's a good idea to include. And I've tried some of the activities with them before I go visit
Mhm.
at the schools and stuff like that. So it's
Yeah.
it's been fun sharing it with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess, reading books to kids, it starts from sometimes even before they're even born. You're reading to them in the womb. And so it's kind of such an amazing thing that you get to read your own book and see their expression and feedback from your own work, right?
Yeah,
And
I went into their classes and they were so excited. They said, "Oh,
yeah,
my mom's coming!" And they
yeah.
were just their teacher said they talked about it all day, and it was
Oh,
fun. And then all their friends said, "Oh, look at this! Your mom's on the back of the book." So it's fun being able to share it with them, and also sometimes I bring them with me to different
mhm.
activities, and it's really nice to share with them.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. And how has your experiences as an educator um, influenced your parenting? Any teaching strategies that you found helpful as a mom, or vice versa? Your mom parenting influences your teaching, rather.
Lots of patience. Well, it's the same as with teaching. Every
Yeah,
child is different. And so you have
yeah,
to just figure out what works best for the child.
yeah.
Just today, there was a Shark Week party at the library, and my daughter was taking a nap. So I took the two boys. As soon as we walked in the door, my extrovert said, "My friend's over there. Can I go play with him?" And he was gone. And then my other son just quietly walked over to the table where they were coloring pictures. And I said,
Uh-huh.
"Oh, do you want me to color with you?" And he said, "Yeah, can you come color with me?" But it's just, they're so different. And
Mhm,
so one son just always wants to be
mhm.
around kids, always wants to be
Yeah,
talking. The other one, he could go hours without saying anything. He'll just sit there and color. And so sometimes just asking him questions, like I
yeah,
said, with my other son, that the extrovert shares everything. So sometimes we just have
yeah,
to say, "Okay, well, let's take turns talking." And that's
yeah,
something that I learned from teaching too. Everybody
yeah.
take turns if we have different ideas.
Mhm.
So it's the same exact thing. You just be patient and just try to do what's best for the child. And
Yeah,
if somebody wants to share all their thoughts and ideas, that's great. Sometimes we also need to let other people share. And then for the
yeah.
person that doesn't share, just trying to pull some
Mhm,
information out of them. But also, if they want to be left alone, that's fine. I mean, when the party
yeah.
was done, we went to the other part of the library. My son was still with
Mhm,
his friend playing a game. My other
mhm.
son went to the train table and he could have stood there for another hour just watching the trains go by
Yeah,
himself. So,
yeah,
yeah, it's just,
yeah.
it's funny. And they're just complete opposites. My daughter's only two,
Mhm.
so we haven't really figured
Right.
out her entire personality yet.
Yeah.
But I think she'll be somewhere in the middle.
That's what happens. They're all so different, and it's just amazing, seeing that too. Um, so you're a part of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. You had mentioned earlier being part of that, community. How has that community support helped your creative journey?
So they have workshops and seminars. I went to
Mhm,
two in Springfield and one in New York City,
mhm,
and they were amazing because you're with all people who are writing children's books or illustrating children's books, and
mhm,
you get to share all your ideas. And it's amazing to see all the different ideas that people have. And then
yeah,
it's nice to be able to bounce ideas off of people, and they'll
mhm,
say, "Oh, I don't think this will work," or "This will work." And they have different critiquing groups. And I just found it to be really helpful and also enjoyable to be around people who are also interested in the same thing as you, because there's not tons of people that are that into it. So going
mhm,
to the group and going to the conferences, I found to be really inspiring, and
yeah,
it made me want to work on things
mhm.
even more.
Yeah, and how did you even find out about that particular group?
I was just doing research online, and then I
Uh-huh,
found that they were having a conference in Springfield, and I went and I loved it. So then
yeah,
I started going to more events. They do a lot
mhm,
more virtually now
mhm,
since COVID, but they still have all sorts of workshops and events, and they
mhm.
have a great website with a lot of information and tools. And I just found it to be a really good resource.
Do you find it, that you would recommend, people to first, connect with, groups like this before they start on their writing journey, or in the middle of the process, but do you find either way that it's much more beneficial having that community support versus going on it on your own?
I found it to be very helpful. And then there was also a group I found in a town near me that had a writing group that I used to
Hmm.
go to. And
Hmm.
people used to bring their work. And when it was your turn, everybody got a copy of your story and you got feedback. So
Oh,
I
okay.
liked getting all the feedback
Yeah.
on the stories because
Hmm.
with obviously kids' books, there's not a ton of words. So you have to make the words matter.
Yeah.
So I found it to be really helpful just to be with other people that
Hmm.
could kind of bounce ideas off of you.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's something that surprised you about the whole publishing process?
I think just after there's a lot to do too. There's a lot to do with the whole publishing process. And then after it's not just, oh, my book is out. There's a lot of like the interviews and things like that to do. Although I enjoy it, I think it's very fun. There is a lot of stuff to do after the book comes out.
Yeah, the marketing of the book is probably more effort than the actual writing of the book sometimes.
I would have to agree.
Yeah, it's really interesting though, because that's what is the hardest part of writing a book is actually marketing it and getting it out there for people to read. Because sometimes it's easy to just write a book, but then it'll be only on your bookshelf. And so,
Exactly.
but the goal is for other people to hear about it. And so, speaking to, your experience going through publishing with a publishing company versus, people self-publishing, what was your decision factor for choosing going with a publishing company versus self-publishing, and how has your experience with the company been so far?
So I've enjoyed my experience with the company and I found them to be very helpful.
Mhm,
Although I did go to a lot of author groups, I was a little nervous about doing it on my own, even though
mhm,
the groups were very helpful and gave me a lot of support. I
mhm,
think now that I've done it with a publishing company, maybe it'd be different doing it on my own, but I
mhm,
was just a little nervous about all of the steps to take to do on my own.
mhm. And would you recommend, because I know you had mentioned you waited 10 years waiting for the right company to come along and pick up your book and story, and, that kinda speaks to your patience that you have.
Yes,
Given
I did have a it did take a while.
and so how would you recommend people just waiting for that right opportunity? Um, and of course, it depends on, each individual and their, purpose of writing and the book and everything like that, but because it does take a while to sometimes get noticed by a publishing company or getting the right agent to be interested in your content. Um, especially if you don't have a huge influencer, group or of people that are following you or different things like that, that go on nowadays, I guess, in writing a book. So how would you advise people with in regards to if they're writing a book and wanting to go the publishing route with a publishing company?
So I think if you want to go with a publishing company, sometimes a group like the one I joined,
Mhm,
they give you a lot of agents and people that will read submissions. So
mhm,
sometimes joining a group gets you a leg up because more people will read what you have. So I
mhm,
found that was another thing that's helpful about the group. And
mhm.
also, I just think that for everyone, timing's different. For
Yeah.
me, it worked out because I started working on it 10 years ago. And since then, I have left the classroom. I have three kids, and now they're a little bit bigger. So now I have more time to really put into the marketing and getting the book out there. So for me, the timing worked out perfect, although the timing took a while. It,
Yeah.
I think everything happens for a reason. And for some people, they write a book and they want to go self-publish it right away,
Hmm.
then that's what works for them. I think everybody's different, but sometimes there's ways to get your work noticed if you join certain groups.
Hmm.
And I think that that's helpful to people that want to be published by a publisher, because if you go to these groups, they'll give you email and email addresses and say, okay, well, send it to me, I'll read it. Whereas normally they're not going to
Hmm.
read it. They're getting hundreds of submissions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is. Timing is everything, and it is dependent on each individual's uh, circumstances, I suppose. And so, but that's really helpful to know for those listening who want to write a book. Join an author book or community of other people, which helps. And I think that's to be said of anything. This on this podcast we've talked a lot about communities and community support, and so of course, even in authorship and writing a book, that community support does make a difference. Um, and so, what other advice would you give to someone who's always dreamed of writing a book but doesn't know where to start? Especially maybe if they're shy or introverted or scared to take that next step.
I think that people that want to write a book, that if they're shy to start, I would just look online. Sometimes there's groups that you can just do online. You don't even have to go. I went to groups where I went in person, but I think a lot has changed, like I said, since COVID. So if you are a shy person and you want to get into a group, you don't always necessarily have to even go or show your face. So I just think looking online, there's tons of resources, and looking for people that will read your book and give you feedback and
Mm.
critiques, because there's something that you might think is funny that other people might not think is funny, or the wording might not flow right. So having other people look it over is very helpful, because I think that just having another set of eyes on anything is helpful. And especially with a book, if you write a book and then you want to go self publish it without anybody else looking at it, you might not get things that other people might have picked up on. So I think just looking online, and if you want to step out of your comfort zone and you want to go to things in person, you can do that. But I'm sure there's plenty of things that you don't even have to go to. You can just
Mhm.
submit your work online, because the group that I went to met in a library near me. There was a couple different things I went to, but they met in a library, and every week people brought their stories and we shared them and gave ideas and critiques back. And we met in person, but I'm sure there's groups that do the same exact thing online. But also, sometimes, even if you are shy, I'm sure everybody else there is shy too. And it's just nice to be around other people that are working on the same thing.
And I think also, just in general, like when you're writing something, a children's book or not children's book, it's still a personal piece of you. And everyone feels like it's a little bit of showing a vulnerable part of you when you're presenting your own creativity, your own ideas. And even though they may not be a shy person, it's just the thought of showing somebody else your work, your creative process is always a big deal, right? And that's kind of like also talking about like how do, you encourage people who are worried about that and stepping out of those comfort zones to actually get that move pushed across. What advice would you give to them who are just like, can I do it?
I would say you can do whatever you want as long as you put the effort in. And I think everybody's story is different. And if you really believe in your story and you want your story to be out there, then that's all that matters. Not everybody's going to like it. And I think that that comes with just growing up. You realize not everyone's going to like everything you do.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
if you really love your story and you want to put your story out there, then I
Mhm.
would just put all of your effort into it, and just, like I said, look online, find groups, find places you can submit it to, have different people critique it and give you feedback, and just believe in yourself. And if you really believe in yourself and your story, then I'm sure others will appreciate it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And when you think about the little girl who sat on the sidelines when you were younger, what would you tell or want to tell her now?
Well, I'm sure everybody in my life would be very surprised to see me doing this type of interview right now because, like I said, when I was younger, I was extremely shy. So I would just want to tell her that all of her differences and uniquenesses are things that made her special, and now she has a voice to share it. And not everybody has a voice starting when they're younger. Sometimes it takes a little while to find, but like I said, everybody is different. Everybody has different interests. My love for elephants continues throughout my life, and now I got to showcase it in my book. So just to, I guess, believe in yourself. And yeah, like I said, everybody I know would be shocked if they saw the child I was doing this type of thing now, because I probably as shy as you can get.
And what do you hope a child feels when they read Elephant Beach for the first time?
I hope they feel happiness. I hope they laugh. I hope they connect with the book. And I just hope that they laugh at the book, but also think about the message of the book and how she had fun with the elephants and how it was something new, and also how they could use it in their own life.
Mm, yeah. And what's next for you? More beach adventures, elephants, something new entirely?
So right now I'm doing story time events. I'm doing an event at a STEM museum by us
Oh,
in a couple
fun.
of weeks. And then I'm doing an author fair near me in August. And then I actually have another book coming out, hopefully by the end of the year, that is totally different. It focuses on grief, which is something that as a teacher, I didn't really find a lot of books on. And
Mhm.
when children deal with loss, you don't want to just come out and start a conversation about it with kids
Yeah.
sometimes because you don't want to make them upset. But
Mhm.
sometimes reading a book on things like that helps them
Mhm.
to realize that it happens to kids
Yeah.
every day. I mean, kids lose
Yeah.
pets, grandparents, parents.
Mhm.
So I just thought it was a very important topic. So
Yeah.
that will be out hopefully by the end of the year. And then maybe another elephant book. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that you're using your experience as a teacher and your experience from childhood, real life issues that affect children today, and incorporating it into such a fun and easy to relate to way for children to learn how to understand their personalities, understand grief. And I love that how you're helping kids through your books. And that's such a great thing that you're making a difference with. And um, I enjoyed this conversation, and I love that your books are already available, Elephant Beach, and I will have all the information on the notes section for listeners to find. I know it's available on Amazon, and I'll send the links on the site for people to look into. And then we'll look out for that coming book later this year. Very exciting. And thank you so much, Christine, for the time and information and insight. I really
Well,
enjoyed
thank
it.
you so much for having me.
Yeah, it was so great. And so, thank you again. And everyone, I hope that you can spark hope in your communities and wherever you are, and realize that you're not alone in whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, whatever your personality is, you're not alone. You can do it. believe in yourself. Nothing is impossible, and you can step out of your comfort zones, connect with others, and learn to understand other people. And when you take that step to spark hope in their lives, you'll never know what happens next. Thank you again so much
Thank you
for
so
listening.
much.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Medicine, Motherhood, Missions. We hope you found inspiration, insight, and a sense of connection in the stories we shared today. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us reach more listeners like you. Follow us on Instagram for updates, free downloads, and to join a community of like-minded individuals passionate about making a difference through medicine, motherhood, and mission work. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. Until next time, keep sparking hope, keep healing, keep nurturing, and keep making a difference. This is Johanna signing off from Medicine, Motherhood, Missions. The medical opinions expressed on this podcast are for the informational purposes only and should not be considered as medical advice. Always consult a licensed healthcare provider for personal medical questions or concerns. The views expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the podcast host.